everyone. We are back with another episode, episode 8. And today we want to talk about weathering through the storm. So, what does weathering through the storm mean? Basically, managing and being able to deal with difficult stretches in our life and overcoming those stretches. And I've kind of thought about doing this episode and thought about just kind of my own life experiences of difficult periods in my life and having to manage through it and eventually overcoming those difficult situations. And when I look through my life, it's not like I've had the worst life, you know, out of everybody that's ever lived on this earth, you know? Like when I look back at my life, I could say for the most part that I'm very appreciative of all the things that have been in my life, and I'm grateful that I haven't experienced, you know, like so much of life's traumas. Like I know there's so many things that a lot of people go through that it just seems like the things that they go through is so unbearable, and I could hardly imagine what they're going through. I mean, you could go down the list of just the type of adversity that people go through. Um, it could be all sorts of things, like going through like health ailments, like cancer, going through like loss, with family and friends, going through warfare, maybe dealing with a lot of abuse in their life. I mean, you could go down the list of just kind of like all the things that could go wrong in life, right? When things take a wrong turn. A lot of it, it's not it's not even you have no control over it. It's not even your responsibility or it's not even your fault. It just happens because there's other people that are involved that kind of override your circumstances, your kind of what's going on in your life, and a lot of these things you just don't have control over. So I can't, I think for the most part, I've been blessed with a good life and a lot of fortune, a lot of good things have come my way, and there's a lot of things to be thankful for. But I think everybody deals with some sort of adversity or difficult periods in their life, um, whatever the case may be. And I'm very sympathetic and also just show a lot of empathy towards people that do go through hard times. And I don't want to be the one to really compare other people's misfortunes or difficult situations or their storms in their life because it's all different. And I'm sure you can compare and kind of weigh out some things are kind of worse than others, of course. But to still show empathy regardless of the degree of the situation, of how bad the situation is. And so I always just want to be supportive and always show empathy regardless of how bad the situation can be. And we know the reality of life. We know, like, when you live in this world, there is a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of things going on that causes a lot of misfortune for people. And again, you could go down the list and really check those boxes. Um, again, as I always say, I can only share from my experience and how I dealt with my own difficult situations. Kind of dealing with my own issues and my own shortcomings, uh, dealing with kind of like deep depression and anxiety and all that. And I think these days in the modern age, those things have been diagnosed and coined, and things like depression, anxiety, and being able to deal with the hard times in life. People have acknowledged that, and there's a lot of science behind it and on what's going on, and people are able to really classify those things and find solutions on how to manage through that state. And so, when I'm thinking about this, when I'm thinking about weathering through the storms, there's definitely a lot of difficult situations that I dealt with in my life, uh, and when I think about it, and when I'm thinking about this episode and looking to share about it, I definitely have some reservations because I don't know if I really want to put a lot of these things out there, because I would be the type where it's pretty difficult to wear my heart on my sleeve. I feel like I'm not naturally that type of person, although I do see the value in it. And so as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at sharing a lot of things that's been going on in my life and my past experiences, but I think it still comes off as a struggle, or um I'm always wary and always have like a certain type of discernment whether it's wise to share some information. And there's a place for that too. I believe there's a place for that, being able to share certain things with certain people, people you could trust, who love and care about you and are looking out for your best interests. So I definitely understand that portion, and you definitely want to share with people who are trustworthy and have your back. And so, I've been really thinking about like what is it that I want to share, and like what's the best way to kind of share my story of how I weathered through some storms in my life. And I could start off with the illustration of a scenario when you're grappling in jiu-jitsu. So, if you know the concept of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's basically you're doing a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling, going into a lot of techniques and submissions to try to get your opponent to submit, to get him to manipulate their limbs or to choke him out. And essentially you're trying to hurt the other person in the form of grappling. And so there'll be points while you're doing that where you're caught in very disadvantaged positions where your opponent or one person could be just smothering you, where you can't breathe, where it feels very uncomfortable, where you feel like you're on the verge of giving up. And there's a lot of that going on in jiu-jitsu. um I think you can relate that to a lot of activities too. When you push yourself so hard, you get to a point where you just all you really think about is your next breath, and you think about just giving up. And that's kind of the picture that I want to paint in terms of weathering that storm. Because you're in that storm where all you're thinking about is that bad position that you're in, or you're thinking about your next breath. You're thinking about if you could go on any further in this activity, or if you could get out of this bad position that you're in jiu-jitsu, and if you could get out of this submission attempt. So, and sometimes, like when you're in those positions, like you do have to kind of be able to, you do have to submit, you do have to give up. Um, and sometimes you overcome it. You bear through it. You stay patient, and then you get out of that bad position into a better one, and kind of turn things around. So the reason I bring up that illustration, because I think that's applied to life circumstances. When you're weathering through the storm, when you're going through those difficult times, it's when you're caught in a bad position, when all you're thinking about is that, just dialed in and having that tunnel vision, and that bad experience, like what's the next move? Do you think about just giving up, or you think of ways where you could get out of this situation? And I've always felt like at times where I had phases where I did feel like giving up, and then times where, surely, um slowly but surely, I was able to manage to get out of that bad situation, or those difficult times, those storms that come our way. And so, I remember when it was when I was on the verge of graduating college. I I remember just thinking like what it is that I wanted to do with my life, because I thought I had an idea. I thought when after I graduate, the thing that I wanted to do was to actually become a teacher and get my teaching credential and continue to go to school to eventually um, be a teacher, maybe at a middle school or high school level. But to be honest, I wasn't really sure. That's just kind of what I had in my mind. And at the time, I didn't really think that I was really passionate about it. I thought that's just the next thing to do. Like after you graduate, is you just find something. You either keep going to school or you find work. And I thought that was the, I guess, the optimal thing to do for myself. But in reality, looking back, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I think at that age, I think I was about 23. The more I pondered on it, the more anxious I got, because the more digging I did into my soul, I was I wasn't really sure like what it is that I want to do with my life. I didn't know really my purpose was in life, and that really threw a curveball in my life. And I, I just remember just being more and more anxious about it, and just doubting like that was something I wanted to do, was pursuing teaching or the next stage in life. And I at the time, I didn't really understand why I was getting so anxious. I guess it was just that fear that I wasn't gonna do well, or things weren't gonna work out, or just doubting if this is really what I wanted to do with my life. And I guess I could see a lot of people going through just that type of anxiety. I'm sure, I'm aware of a lot of people that do when it comes to finding like purpose in their life, especially living in like a first world country, like living in the US. I mean, you have this trajectory of like going through school, receiving education all the way from at the age of 4 to 18, and then after that you're trying to look for a job right away, or you go to school for 4 years, or you go to school for even longer than four. You continue to go to school after that and find a profession. Um, I guess really that suits you, or that is optimal, that is encouraged by your family, your parents, and then you work for the rest of your life. And I guess in the modern age, that's kind of what you're taught. That's kind of the conservative pathway to take. And so I follow that line, and I always thought like in high school, like you're supposed to get the best grades and go to the best school and get a nice job, get a good career, make a lot of money, have a family. Like these are the things that you need to do in your life, like check off those boxes. Only come to realize that when you get older, I think there's much more to life than just following that trajectory. Not that those things aren't bad things, but I mean, I just feel like that's not all there is to life. And so with that in mind at the time, it's just like you're thinking about the next stage, and you're thinking like, oh man, like am I again, I had those doubts, and those doubts brought a lot of anxiety, and I questioned myself, am I capable of doing these things in my life? Am I capable of being a good teacher or teaching a certain subject? Like I started asking these questions, and even question sorry, even questioning my own abilities to be able to kind of do what's next to me, to prepare myself for the next stage in life. And I think, when that started happening, it just kind of became like a downward spiral where I just kind of felt lost, because I started to doubt and question like that was really my like teaching, or like the bottom line was I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I think that is what kind of triggered it. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, I also started to question what I was capable of doing, what my capabilities were. And that brought me down to a pretty deep depression. And um the feeling of losing that purpose, the feeling of kind of losing that self-confidence was what really triggered into me just feeling so down about myself and going through that difficult period. I remember I graduated, and it was great at the moment. You graduate, you finish what you started, but after that, it just really hit me. And like I committed like 5 years of my life going to school, trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do with my life, only to realize like I really didn't know, which is kind of ironic. And because I didn't know, because I felt so lost and felt like I didn't have much purpose in my life, it kind of brought me down to my knees. And um, Yeah, I just remember being so depressed. And to add on to that, I when I started questioning my abilities and questioning who I was, like there's this level of self-awareness that I had where I was um kind of just pinpointing or nitpicking sorry, nitpicking all the flaws that I had in myself. And I always thought like there were certain things about myself that I wasn't good at. Like I wasn't good at maybe socializing or, talking to people. And at the time, I wasn't the best at it. Um, I thought I wasn't a very loving person, and at the same time, maybe I wasn't loved enough growing up. Um, all these things, a lot of these things, there was some truth to what I saw about myself, but at the same time, there's a lot of lies too. Um, like like thinking that like no one liked me for whatever reason, that I wasn't loved. Um, I know that was not true, or feeling like I wasn't valued, things like that. Um, but there is some truth where I felt like I wasn't the most loving person. There's things I would think about, like all the wrongs that I've done and how I mistreated people, or like how I acted out, or things like where you would compare yourself to other people, thinking like you're not like the best looking, you don't have the best attributes, like everything that you invested in didn't really succeed, like you didn't feel like you're a very successful person, or you compare your accolades to other people and you felt like you just weren't good enough, right? And I think there was also a lot of good in that realization and that self awareness, because I think it did point out some flaws that were true. But when you mix that in with kind of the lies and also telling yourself like you're a failure, like you're of no value, or you're not loved, and now you're at this point for a reason, because of who you are, because you're just not good enough, when it ties in with these lies, it's like it, I knew at the time it was very overwhelming, and it felt very unbearable. And at the time when I was questioning myself to that extent, I didn't even know why that was happening. Like I was just like, why? Why is this happening to me? Like, why am I going through this? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel so depressed and so anxious? And it got to a point where the anxiety got so bad, and I didn't see a psychologist, or didn't get therapy during this time. But I knew this was like the only phase of my life where the anxiety got so bad where I couldn't focus on my daily tasks. Like my anxiety was at its peak where all I just thought about was just, oh, how can I do this? Like all I was thinking about like the future. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm just thinking about like all these questions and all these doubts in my head, just running through my head constantly, like 24/7. It was so bad. Like I didn't even know what was going on. I just felt like I had no control over my mental state. It felt like the absolute worst. And I think what made it pretty bad was like I just didn't know how to deal with it. Like I was just so lost and so confused, and also just my headspace was just completely uh going haywire. It was like all over the place. So he had that all going up at once, and I just felt so down. And man, when I felt like I was at that state, I just felt like giving up. Like it did felt like at phases like I was, because giving up kind of felt like just not doing anything. Like you just want to. I'm sure, like if you go through depression when you're in a depressed state, like you don't want to do anything. You just want to lay down in bed and you don't want to wake up. You have no motivation to do anything. Um, you just want to just sulk in your depression. You just want to stay in that state. Like you're ready to die. Like honestly, essentially giving up is like just wanting to die. That's what it basically is. Like you don't even want to live anymore. And so I definitely felt that for several months. Um and yeah, that was a huge part of my life. It was a dark time in my life. And even when I think about it, it's like it's not something, I don't know. I've definitely shared it with people, uh with close friends, and definitely shared it with people that I thought it would be well, it was the right setting. It just the conversation went there, and maybe it was a way to help other people too. Um, but yeah, I definitely know what people are talking about when um they're in that depressed state or going through like severe anxiety, because I definitely felt that for a while during that season, during that storm. I never really had like panic attacks. Like I wasn't heaving, like gasping for air, but I know that's what people go through. Some people go through like panic attacks, and um, yeah, I've definitely seen that as well. And I never dealt with that, but I guess my version of it was just constant, just not being present in what was in front of me. I just always, even though I was like hanging out with friends and just doing certain things, like I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about like all these things that were going on in my head, my doubts, like doubting like every single thing that I was supposed to do, or doubting like the tasks that I was supposed to do, thinking about like my future, thinking about like how lost I am, like all these things just coming out at once, going through my head, while in reality, while what I should be doing is just kind of being present and hanging out with my friends or doing this specific thing, but I couldn't focus. It just That's how bad the anxiety was. And I don't know if at the time I was trying to seek help, like professional help, that is. I think I'm not sure at the time. I might have um I know I was seeking help for sure from like my friends and family. Um I remember like just going up to like my mentor at the time and just kind of sharing what was going on with like my mind, like how I was feeling, and also sharing with my friends like what exactly was going on and why I was feeling this way. And to be honest, like that actually helped a lot. Like just sharing about it. I think having like close friends that were able to just listen to me and just to lend a ear, and they didn't necessarily have to give me like the right answers. Just the fact that they were there and they cared for me, like I think that was huge. And I do believe like those were steps that really helped me, like, and really kind of push me forward, helping me putting like one foot over the other, because That's another aspect too. Is just like while you're going through it, you have to keep moving. You can't just stay in one place. You have to be able to do the task at hand and put one foot over the other. Um, but for me at that season, because I just graduated, like I didn't really have any obligations, so I had a lot of free time to just be depressed and be anxious. And I just remember like I didn't want to talk to people. I just want to stay home and just like watch TV, watch videos or movies and stuff. Like I didn't want to interact with people because being at that state, I felt so ashamed. I felt so ashamed to be being in that state. Like how could I just felt like a nuisance too. Like how could I present myself or be around people that are okay while I'm in this state where I just feel so terrible, you know? So there's that aspect too, and at the same time, like I just didn't bother. I just didn't feel interested or motivated. But when I did hang out with people, when there were friends that consoled after me, like it really did help. Like I think that's definitely one thing that one of the things that definitely helped me get through those seasons. And no, I'm definitely grateful for that. I mean, you definitely need people around you. Even when I even when I didn't at times feel like seeking out to people, like I you know, there are people that reach out to me and checking up on me, and um that was huge. That was huge in the healing process. And so I remember during that time just not getting out and just like sleeping in, not wanting to get up, lying in bed, just like not wanting to do anything, but I was still breathing. You know, I was still alive, so I had to still had to eat, still had to do something. I didn't know what to do at that time in my life, but I was still alive, so I had to still do those things. But I remember like obviously when you go through these tough times, we all have our vices that we resort to. We all have our things to help us, not help us, but even just hurt us during those situations. And obviously, for me, my thing was like drinking, drinking a lot, drinking alcohol, and stress eating. That was like my thing. And I think during that period for several months when I was in that depressed state, oh man, I must have gained like 30 to 40 pounds because I was eating and drinking and just being unhealthy and like staying up late, just doing nothing and being lazy and watching TV. And when you do that, like that doesn't make your depressed state, you know, what you're doing to yourself physically, you know, by eating junk food and eating out and drinking, that's definitely not gonna help your mental state or your spiritual state. It's gonna make it worse. And so I know those things weren't gonna help, or better yet, better said, it wasn't helping at all. I mean, that's just contributing to that that storm. Um, it wasn't gonna make me feel any better. And I think it came to a point where I just realized, like, you have that moment where you look yourself in the mirror and you realize, like, oh my gosh, I am so out of shape, right? You just look at yourself physically. And I was a guy that was a very active person. So, you know, um I was always intentional on staying in shape and making sure I did like my exercise and all that. And so when I looked in the mirror and realized like, oh my gosh, I'm so overweight. I'm so out of shape. Like what am I doing with my life? I can't stay like this, right? And on top of that, there's also um kind of like my core values, like again, like finding I was for me, I had my own underlying purpose, like with my belief in God and my faith. And um yeah, I believe my Christian faith is what was a huge contributor to me also getting out of that depression too, because um it made me resort to a higher power, resort to God in this time. And you know trying to find my purpose, or trying to lean on something um that is like the center of my life, that is essential to who I am. And that's a big that is to me like my faith is what is the center of who I am. And although there was doubt with my faith, a doubt with like my purpose and all that, and it even came to a point where I question like my beliefs. I question like um if 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 those beliefs are even real, you know. And it brought me to a humble state too, where it's like is this really my purpose? Like do I really believe in this? And like again, it just started questioning everything. But at the same time, um it's as if that's all I had. All I had was that faith and that belief in God, uh and understanding that I am valued, that I am loved, um and that at the same time it's not all about me and my problems, but there's a greater purpose, and there's value in what I'm contributing in this world. Um and so when I really thought about that at its core, that was kind of like that little burning flame that was still lit in myself, in my soul, that just didn't go out, but it was still there. Um because that to me that was everything to me. And it almost felt as if like I was still guided through that storm. Like I wasn't alone on it. Obviously I had my friends and my family. There were people, close ones, that were there for me at the time. But there's also that belief, that hope, where um, that there's something out there. There's a higher being. There's a higher power out there that is there and looking out for you. And I only share that from a personal experience. Maybe for those that are listening might not have a belief in God or have completely different beliefs, which is fine. But I'm just sharing what it is that has helped me get through that period of time, and that's why I share it. Um, and so with that in my heart, like I just felt like I wasn't totally out. Like I was still there. There's still something there that I needed to do, or that was just keeping me alive. That was keeping me afloat. Um, I think I eventually came to the realizations like I can't stay like this forever. Like what am I gonna do? Just being depressed and eating junk food and like drinking all the time. Is this like really where I want to be for the rest of my life? Like at the very least, especially when I had that moment of looking in the mirror, I'm like, well, at the very least, you can lose some weight, right? You don't have to stay this fat, or this out of shape. Was kind of what I was saying to myself, and so, yeah, I think I eventually. There's just one night where I just decided, like, okay, I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna run a mile. So I went to the nearest track and I ran a mile, and that was like one of the most exhausting miles that I ever ran because I was so out of shape and I was carrying all that extra weight that I wasn't used to, and um yeah, it was terrible, but at the end of it it felt good because it's kind of what my body needed. My body was craving for was um just that stress relief, and again, just pushing yourself where you're thinking about that next breath, but um yeah, you're just moving forward. You feel like giving up, but you just keep on going. You keep running that track. And also at the time too, like of course, like as you already know, if you watch previous episodes, I'm a big basketball guy. I grew up playing basketball, so just playing basketball again. And I was also a big martial arts fan, big MMA fan. Watched a lot of UFC and watched a lot of fights. Watched a lot of. I followed the sport too, so I would be caught up with like kind of the lead up to fights of the promotion of it and listening to people's like stories and their journeys of these fighters, and that always like inspired me too and like motivated me, and eventually got me to a place where I wanted to train as well. And I just remember joining like a UFC gym and telling myself like, hey, look, why don't I just start training and um actually start doing what I enjoy watching. And so that became the spark of my kind of my passion for martial arts, in terms of like actively doing it myself. And as I mentioned before, I was trying to lose weight and trying to get in shape. So I ran, I played basketball, um, started doing martial arts, and started eating healthier. Cutting off all the junk food and just pretty much going cold turkey on the alcohol. And I I just I just stopped that and slowly but surely starting to turn it around. Also, I also recall just uh I remember I was coaching a little bit um during my later years in college, coaching for a high school boys basketball team, and I uh I think I came across a site called udemy.com where you could put like online courses on there. And I thought to myself, okay, why don't I do something productive and start making videos of me giving like instructionals on certain drills of basketball courses. And so I started working that on that. And I remember also putting up, going up on Craigslist and posting like my own ad of me providing like private lessons for basketball. And eventually I found like my first client, and slowly but surely I started getting more clients, started doing more private lessons for basketball, and also creating more online courses uh, through basketball as well, making a lot of basketball online courses on Udemy. And that kind of kickstart like me getting back into basketball. The thing that I grew up doing was the very thing that contributed to me uh, getting out of that depression. And again, putting one foot over the other, knowing that I had to do certain tasks. So I gave myself certain goals that I had to do. And slowly but surely, I got out of that storm. I got out of that depressed state. I weathered through the storm. Um, Not every move that I made was the right one. And, but, I got help along the way. I found um, a higher purpose in my life, or it's not that I found it, but I resorted back to what I always had from the start, from the very beginning, which is with my faith. That's always been there. That's always been a part of my life. Um, but I reverted back to it, or you could even say like I was brought to that place for a purpose, um, maybe to shape and mold me into the person that I am. And yeah, I think slowly the anxiety, um, at least the severe part of my anxiety went away, and I was able to get out of that deep depression and weather through that storm. And I share that. Obviously, I share a personal experience in my story to help you better understand what it was like for me personally weathering through a storm and how I personally got out of it. Obviously, it would have been great to also get professional help too, to get therapy. And even after that, I believe I know I've got therapy several times from different types of therapists, and overall I have found it helpful. I don't use it now, but in the past there were certain therapists that I found helpful that helped me deal with certain situations, and um it was very helpful. And I think they lend they're trained to do this, and they study the psychology of the human mind. And I think a lot of them are well educated and have can help you provide the tools of dealing with difficult times and certain situations. And so for me, I'm all for that. I have nothing against it. Um, I do, and it also depends too. Like it does depend on like how well you vibe with certain therapists, and certain people can help you with through certain situations, or maybe you need to find a better match well suited for you. Um so there's that aspect of it too, where the matching purposes preferences between the client and the therapist, or the psychiatrist or psychologist. It does matter too, to really to find the optimal person that could help you. Um, but there's things like that, just having a community, just having close friends around you that care about you, that will reach out to you in a difficult time, and someone to just lend a ear. That's huge too, because I just don't believe you could get through this all by yourself. I mean, you need loved ones and people that care about you to help you get through that too. And so, of course, like there's been other instances where I've dealt with difficult times, and that wasn't the only time that I dealt with a depressed state. And um, yeah, I again, um, like I made my share of mistakes along the way, but when you overcome it and you weather through the storm, you definitely come out of it a different person. And um you realize, like, for one, like resorting to those vices and resorting to like those negative um things that could like destroy your life. Like, it doesn't even have to just be alcohol. It could be other vices. It could be like, you could resort to drugs. You could resort to like specific addictions that you have. Um, but I know for sure that's not the way to go. You can't resort to your addictions or to your vices when you're going through difficult times. You definitely want to go seek consolation through your loved ones, and to be with those that really care about you. Um, and also resorting to like foundational beliefs, finding that purpose in your life. Um, just reminding yourself, like, why you're on this earth, like reminding yourself that you're loved, that you're valued, that there's people that care about you, and that you're capable of doing a lot of great things, uh, and contribute to this world, to this society, to your community, um, and to not fall into those lies about yourself, like you're worthless, like you're failure, like you're not valued or not loved, because that's not true. Even though people who are not loving may have told you that, there's definitely people out there that will give you that love, that do care about you. Maybe you just have to seek it, or you have to put forth more effort to find that. But there's definitely people out there, and you need to surround yourself with those type of people. Um, but yeah, I think because it's definitely changed me, and I think also it also brought a lot of resilience in my own life. It's made me, I think, a much more seasoned person, a stronger person. Um, and I think to have this kind of perspective of like knowing the value of a person, like showing empathy. I don't know if I would have the type of empathy or this type of perspective if I didn't go through that storm, if I didn't go through that depressive state. Um, Maybe I could relate to people more that do go through a deep depression, that do go through anxiety, with the fact that I've been through it myself. And so, you know, at the time, like in the moment, it doesn't feel great, right? But you still put one foot over the other, and you still got to do the things you need to do, right? You can't just like drop dead. Although the sad reality is, like, that's what some people do when they get to that place. They do take their own lives, and they just feel like it's enough. But um they miss out on the opportunity of what how much uh how much great things they could do having gone through that storm, having gone through the difficult times. Because when you come out of it, I just feel like there's just so much growth. Uh, I feel like the times that I went through the hardest times, and when I came out of it, those were the times where I feel like I grew the most, actually, are those seasons where I went through the difficult times. So it just almost feels like when you go through this life, like that's like a necessary part in life, is going through these difficult situations, because it molds you into a much greater person, a person of greater significance, of a person that has, in a sense, grown up, and and can be able to honestly provide a lot of value to people with their experiences. And so, um, that's, I hope that was helpful. I think like everybody goes through those storms, everybody goes through hard times. So it's just, how do you deal with it when it comes? Like, are you just gonna give up, or are you gonna do something about it? Are you gonna take the necessary steps to help you uh, just get better, even when you don't feel like it? I think that's an important thing too. Is like, there's so much resistance, right? While you're going through, you're trying to take the right steps, you're trying to do the right thing, but there's so much resistance to it. But um, you can't quit. You got to keep going. Like, you just got to remind yourself, like, of these things, like, that you are loved, that you're valued, that your life matters, and what you go through now might be able to help someone else in the future, and when you come out of it, you come out much stronger. Um, you come out with a lot more growth, uh, a lot a bigger capacity to love and show empathy towards others. I think you come out of it just a way better person when you overcome these storms. And so, um, I hope you appreciate kind of what I've shared. It does I do have to be a little vulnerable, but I think it's okay. I think it's, as long as it's helpful for those that are listening, and it encourages people to kind of move forward. I always find people who share like their stories of failures and triumphs. Like, I get inspired, and I get encouraged when I hear other people's stories when they go through the hard times and they overcome it. Like, I really appreciate when people share those kind of stories. And yeah, I just which is why I don't mind sharing mine, if it's gonna be helpful for someone else. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you like content like this, uh, please subscribe to this channel, drop a like for this video, hit the notification button, the bell, if you want to receive updates on our content. I will try my best to continue to keep posting and talk about good subjects, good topics. But hopefully you like this one, man. And if there's anything else that you guys want me to talk about, leave it in the comment section below, and I could definitely consider what it is you want me to talk about, and maybe it could be our next episode. Thank you guys once again. Have a good night. Take care. Peace.